Good day, all you wonderful people. Welcome to the program Changing the World with me, Lorette Dye. I am excited to spend the next hour with you. That question, who am I? And just the realization how small we are. Now, it starts many years ago when I was 10 years old. Now, just to give you the context, I was brought up Afrikaans and had no exposure to English, as in those days there was no TV as well. When I was 9 years old, in school we started to learn English. So that was my first exposure to English. And as a 10-year-old, my parents decided to go to an English church. Now, think about this. I am a 10-year-old. A child battles to concentrate, as is at that age, in church through a whole sermon, and I had almost no English. And we were sitting in church and we were listening to the sermon, or was supposed to, and obviously I didn't listen to everything, or there's a lot that went over my head, a lot of things that I didn't understand. But there was a moment in the church that the preacher said the following words. And he said, God is real. And it was as if those words hit me like a hammer between my eyes. I was really touched, but also confronted. And these words stuck with me. And it had such an impact on my life, but in different ways. And I believe God made it real to me. And I want to talk to you today about the consequences if we know and believe and realize that God is real. We are talking today about God is real and the implications of that if we know and believe that He is real. Now, first of all, if you know and believe that God is real, then you will go into this place and this knowledge that it is not something to take lightly. It is not a game. It is not something that we pretend about. It's not a role that we climb into. It's not something that we just sometimes accept and play the part. If we know that God is real, then it will cause us that all our focus in our lives will be on God. I find it very interesting. I, for example, work in Nigeria once a year where I give training in counseling and specifically art counseling. And one of the very interesting things for me is that I have a colleague, a psychologist, that is giving training in Nigeria at the same time as I am. And he spends a lot of time to talk about how God is not real and that religion is for the weak. And I was thinking about it and listening to him and looking at him and his life. And I thought, but if you were sure that God is not real as you claim, then why do you put in so much time and so many arguments? Because if something is not real, then why do you even talk about it? If you are sure it doesn't exist, then why waste your energy on that? And it just made me realize that people that talk about God a lot, even if it is because they believe and trying to convince themselves and others that He is not real, The fact that you are so aware of Him, the fact that it is taking up so much of your thinking brain, of so much space in your life, tells me that you are in doubt. Otherwise, you just wouldn't have bothered. And I so badly want to tell him, but I experienced God's presence. I experience Him working in my life, and that He's there, that He is active in my life. And in me there is no doubt, because God is very real. And once you know that, once you understand that, you can't turn away from it again, and it will influence your focus. Everything in your life will be God-focused. Everything in your life will be different, because you would know that He has to be everything in your life. As I said earlier, it is not a game. It is not something that you just think of every now and then. It is not something you visit, like a church that you visit. But if you know, like I know, that God is real, it will be the spiral that your life will turn around. It would be the center of your life, of your thoughts, and of everything that you do, and how you live, and how you think. If we know and believe that God is real, then we will take it serious every moment of every day, and it will be the center of our life, to focus on God and to enter into a relationship with Him. That is the first implication that I experienced when I realized God is real. The second implication, when I understood that God is real, is that I realized that I have to choose Him. For me, it was very simple. If God is real, then I cannot not choose Him. I cannot not acknowledge Him. It is actually a very simple decision then. If God is real, how could we turn away from Him? How could we chance to reject Him? How can we walk away from Him and not choose Him and choose Him as being the center of our lives? And as a 10-year-old, when I heard these words, that God is real, I was so overcome by the implication of this, that I, as a mere human being, can't turn away from Him. And I went on my knees, and although at that point I already turned to God, I went down on my knees as a confirmation, and I said to God, I understand that you are real, and I want to reconfirm that I am choosing you as everything in my life, and that I want to put you first, and that I want to be your child. if you would have me. And that was a turning point in my life. And from that day, it was a conscious decision to walk with God and to always walk towards God. If we know that God is real and we understand that He must be the center and we give our lives to Him, then the next implication of understanding that God is real is that you will understand that you are not like other people. You are set apart. And therefore, everything changes. You have a different responsibility. You think about the world and about people in a different way. You think about your life in a different way. When we know God is real and He is our Father, then we trust Him to guide us. We trust Him for our lives and for our life decisions. That means that I don't make any decisions without God. I don't live my life for myself. I live my life for God. And therefore, I want to be sure that my choices is God's choices. I want to be sure that my life is lived in His will. I am not living for myself anymore, and therefore in everything and for everything I look to God. That includes how I look at people and how much influence people have in my life. I don't choose to follow people. I don't choose to be influenced by people and what they believe and what they want from me and how they criticize me. I'm not looking for the acceptance of people. I am looking at myself through God's eyes as someone that is set apart and that is a child of Him. And even if people judge me or they reject me, I remember who is my Father. And I remember that the only one that has to accept me and has to be happy with me is God. And therefore, I'm not someone that compromises for people and for the love of people. Like my daughter said to me a while ago, who puts the love of God second to the love of a human being? And I know we forget this. We put people first. We choose people. We're looking for people's acceptance. We're looking for the love of a person. We're looking for validation by people. But if we know God is real and He is everything, we will put people's acceptance and love second, and God's acceptance of us and love for us, and what He is expecting of us first. The next implication of knowing that God is real is understanding that He works with us differently than with worldly people, people that doesn't believe in Him, that didn't accept him as Father and Lord. And that is so important to know. We tend to look at other people and say, why do they have everything? Why are they so lucky? But we need to remember that God ensures that everything works out to the best for those that love him. That means that sometimes he is going to expect of you difficult things. But the short-term difficult is nothing compared to the long-term benefit of listening to God and of being in his will. We will talk about this concept again in future, because it is so important that you understand that God expects difficult things from us when we are fully committed to him, but that it always comes with a good outcome in the long term. We tend to look at what is happening now. What do we have now? And when we are going through a difficult time, we are upset and we ask the question, but where is God? And I want to remind you today that God doesn't work with us in the same way that he works with the world. He is not interested in your short-term happiness. He is interested in how your life is, and that eventually, and in the bigger picture, everything is for the best and beautiful, and that you've lived a life close to him and for him. And that is more important to God than anything else. I want to remind you what I said earlier. Look at yourself, but also at your life through God's eyes. As we get to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with the following verses. Acts 14 verse 17. But God was always there doing the good things that prove he is real. He gives you rain from heaven and good harvests at the right times. He gives you plenty of food and fills your hearts with joy. And Hebrews 11 verse 6. Without faith, no one can please God. Whoever comes to God must believe that he is real and that he rewards those who sincerely try to find him. You listen to Changing the World with me, Lorette Dye. Remember, changing the world starts with you. And don't let this day go by without laughing, dancing, singing, and sitting at God's feet. I am, as always, grateful for this time that you spent with me. Be safe and be blessed.